This is part 4 of our interview with Bryan and Kylie Marler. Bryan's a pastor at Bethel Baptist Church in Noblesville, Indiana. Bryan attempted suicide in 2018, and he shared his story with the hopes that it helps others. Now today he talks about how this has affected his relationships, his friendships, the loneliness that comes with ministry, dealing with people that ask if it's because of sin, and what he's learned from this diagnosis.
I have some close friends that aren't close friends anymore. I have some close friends that I've been able to talk to about it, and it hasn't really changed anything other than maybe they check in every once in a while to see how I'm doing, which is nice. Family, everybody, was there for us, and I've got some family members that I can relate to now because in the time after that they have experienced similar things, and so I've got some family that I'm able to talk to about it kind of in depth and stuff like that. Family wise, I guess it makes it easier maybe it makes it easier for them because I know if I'm having a bad day it's just because I'm having a bad day. I don't know, but friendships, it depends on the friends and what side of the mental health opinion scale they fall on. I've made some friends who have really made a difference in my life because of their understanding, and that's been incredibly important. Because you want to have a strong support system, and listen, we're not talking about sin here. We're talking about a sickness. And so, having people around you that understand where you're coming from and what you're dealing with, but at the same time can say, hey, remember what's going on, and can name it for what it is. And that's been very helpful and incredibly important, especially since ministry is lonely, incredibly lonely. Our closest family is 4.5 hours away. So we have got to have a circuit of friends around us here. And we have people in our church too. Our church family, they know I've been very open with them about everything. And it's even allowed me to minister well to them. So, building that support system is incredibly key. And I think going along with taking care of yourself, having that support system is part of that. And ministers and pastors, sometimes we thrive off of being exhausted and being worn out and being alone. And we wear that as like some sort of badge of honor, like it's something we should be proud of. And what it can instead do is open all the doors for Satan, for stuff like this, And while this is a physical thing, there is a lot of spiritual stuff that goes on too. So you have all these spiritual attacks and physical attacks and all of that. And pretty soon you're lost, exhausted, and by yourself. What's the outcome going to be? I think we're seeing it in the news. More and more high-profile pastors are taking their lives. And it just absolutely wrecks me to see that happen. I know that not everything can be avoided all the time, but a proper understanding of how we work and what we can do to help can go a long way.
What would you say to those who are of the opinion that this is God's judgment on your life? Would that be a correct way to describe their mentality?
Yeah, I've had that. I've had that conversation a couple times.
What can you say?
Yeah, talking to somebody about it, and the question is inevitably asked sometimes. Is there sin in your life? Or I had somebody I called and they asked me that, and I was like, well, I know where this conversation's going, and I think I don't really have a lot to say about it. to that response, because I'm not sure how much I would be able to say that could change their mind right off the bat. So, quite honestly, if there's people that have that opinion, they're not the ones I go to. Because the last thing that anybody who's experiencing a low, regardless of anything, any kind of mental illness or whatever, the last thing they need to hear from somebody is, I really think that this is happening because God's judging you for your sin. Listen, it may be true, right? Like maybe somebody is experiencing a low because of all of these decisions they've made or whatever, but that's not the response they need. I think that we can love people and be graceful and be merciful and be comforting and still steer them in the right direction without saying that, especially to today's culture. And I'm not pandering to culture, but we're talking about a culture in which people are going to look for answers everywhere, and they'll get answers everywhere. They're not going to be good answers. They're not going to find Christ at the bottom of bottles and pipes, but that's what the world says is going to help. And those people don't come to them and say, there's probably sin and that's what this is all about. But we could come to them with Christ and say, I know what you're experiencing is difficult, and Christ is hope in that. But let's find him and find treatment for it at the same time. And that's going to address the sin issue by itself, if Jesus is in it. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I ask that question a lot, especially if I'm having a difficult time. Why? I know that there's been several people in our church that I've been able to minister to personally and grow relationships with because of it, because they have also dealt with that. There's people not in our church that I've been able to cultivate relationships with because of that, because of the common understanding that we're broken humanity, and I think my experience really in the hospital is what reaped the most benefits for me, because I was in there with a lot of different people, group therapy and stuff like that. And I think I saw maybe 15, 20 people come in and out while I was there. And almost every single one of them, except for the ones that just didn't go to church or didn't have any sort of faith, had all been turned away by their churches. Whether it was for help or for counseling or because they would go there and the first thing they hear is there must be sin in your life. And they, like Job, would say, you're being a miserable comforter. But, so I think really what it has brought to light for me is understanding that most of the time, if not all the time, right, people have more going on behind the scenes than you and I are aware of. This is a diagnosis that people cannot physically see. And when people are walking around the grocery store, I don't think they're assuming that guy's got borderline personality disorder. Invest in people and have those conversations and see what's going on and dig a little deeper maybe, and to have compassion on those that are struggling. I think it's helped me want to know people's story a little bit more than I did, which doesn't make me feel great that I didn't want that. But yeah, I think it's really opened a lot of doors for me to be able to relate to and minister to people, care about them and love them right, because I've experienced it. And I mean, experience is a great teacher, so you learn how to see that, I think, in other people. So and just the idea that we've all got stuff going on.
I think most people react in a negative way regarding mental health because they just don't understand it. That should never be a lasting excuse. How can you minister to the hurting if you don't bother to understand why they hurt? The fact of the matter is, it would scare us if we knew what people are dealing with, but we have the answer. And it's a relationship and a walk with Christ. Take time to educate yourself and then invest in people so you can help hurting people.